All right, welcome everybody to the comic panel. I'm Cody,
I'm Talon.
And I'm Shawenta.
and today we are going to be discussing Solanin, volumes 1 and 2 by Inio Asano. And so, oh yeah, that's right. I totally forgot. But I was going to also introduce, if anybody has listened to our show and heard our coverage for Destruct, or what is it?
DDD.
DDDD
And
Destruction.
Destruction,
Yeah.
which he also did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Although we have not covered it on the show, readers of his work might be familiar with Goodnight Poon Poon also.
Oh my god. Yeah, his most famous work.
Yeah.
It's really funny because I have the full omnibus of Solanin, and I got to the very end, and at the end there's an ad for Goodnight Poon Poon, and it calls it the slice of life that slices back. Like, huh.
That's good.
Okay. Interesting.
That got me.
Yeah, it's a good angle for an advertisement, honestly.
Yeah.
Such an American thing to say.
So yeah, anyway, Shwenta, you chose this book. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
As usual with most manga, the story and the art is done by Asano. And so, I mean, obviously I've heard about this book before. Like, I saw little snippets, and I was led to believe it was a much shorter story than the 400 pages it was. And I found it kind of interesting, the main character being such a negative person, where she's in the workplace, and she's like, she's looking at all the adults who she technically is part of, and she's kind of looking down on them. Everybody's so, what is it? They're okay. She's like, there's wars going on, but everybody's gonna be okay with it because as long as I have food to eat, as long as, the pay is good for this job, they'll put up with anything. I just found that kind of interesting,
Yeah.
Asano is definitely known for his very strongly negative, I guess. Some people would consider it very realistic.
Yeah,
I mean, he definitely doesn't shy away from it, at least.
Yeah, I saw on his Wikipedia page that his genre work was basically titled realist. Yeah. I mean, I guess emotionally realist, because remembering DDDD Destruction, that was obviously not real life, but
yeah, I think it's interesting. We can talk about what Solanin is about more in a second, but it's interesting how Solanin has those parts where the main character, Meiko, she says oh, and then the Earth descended into chaos in the year 2000, so X. And Earthlings were barely able to survive, and then she admits through her narration, she says, oh, okay, I'm just joking, life is normal. Nothing exciting is happening. And the fact that Solanin's an earlier work, and then Demons and Destruction is a later work which deals with that exact premise of the Earth has descended into chaos. Aliens have invaded.
Yeah.
But there's kind of no chaos. Because everybody just adjusts to this new wartime. In a very bizarre way. Well, enough about his other work. It's definitely, you can see that it's his work. It's so much just him.
Yeah.
So Solanin is about Meiko, the main character, who's around a 24-year-old girl. She graduated from college. She started her first real adult job, and she absolutely hates it. And so she decides to quit. And this puts a lot of pressure on her boyfriend. They always refer to him by his last name, Taneda, I think. I want to call him a slacker boyfriend, but that's kind of mean. He has a part-time job, um, and over the course of the story, you slowly realize he does have a true ambition in music, but he's also sort of kind of beating around the bush, where he, oh, I have my part-time job, and he sort of like just plays with his band, but not for live shows, not for anything serious. Um, and he, for the most part, seems to be making himself content with that kind of life. But Meiko, Meiko, on the other hand, doesn't quite have any ambitions. She, like, throughout the story, you hear she's always been the sort of person to not finish things. Everybody's like, you're a slacker. You start something, you're not going to finish it. That's just kind of how you are. And so the story is very slice of life, her dealing with this decision she made that she regrets at times, and then also wonders if the only reason she regrets it is because she's going to also give up on giving up.
Yeah.
So she fights with her mom, where she's not willing to tell her mom that she's living with her boyfriend because she's worried about the judgment. It's hard to characterize a lot of it because so much of it is about exploring the different characters. So there's the different bandmates. There's Rip, and there's Kato. Rip being one of the other characters who he was a college student with them in the music club, and he liked Meiko upon first seeing her, and so he's kind of torn by the
Also referred to as Billy. Is that?
Yeah, in the at least the
unless translations are different.
Yeah, I think in the translation that we had, it basically explained that the way that Billy looks, the way that Billy is translated into Japanese characters, it looks similar to the way that the sound of a rip looks, and so that's where that comes from, basically.
That's interesting. Throughout this translation, it's rip. Because he just goes, yeah, I ripped my pants in elementary school. So they always refer to him as Rip. Which he doesn't like. He's like, it's funny how little things like that can just affect the rest of your life. But yeah, he likes Meiko, and he's like, yeah, he's kind of jealous of Taneda of getting with her. But he can't really do anything about it at this point, or at least he doesn't feel comfortable doing so. And then, the fact that Rip is the only one out of their group that isn't a couple. So, there's Taneda, Meiko, Rip is alone, and then Kato is with, I'm forgetting her name.
It's like Ai-chan?
Ai? Yeah, AI. So I, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think means love in some cases, actually. Yeah, so, it's the dynamics of the group. And so Meiko finally puts some pressure on Taneda. She's like, why don't you get your band back together to do something serious? And I guess, they kind of fight over that. Although, they're always like, oh, it's a big fight. I'm like, they just kind of looked at each other for a moment, then walked away.
Yeah, I definitely, I felt that way too, where it was like, sometimes the fights, I was like, wait, did you just fight? I'm confused a little bit, like.
I think it's because they're so similar in some way that they're both the kind of people to just walk away from a fight. They don't want to do confrontation. Yeah. I love Taneda being at his design work, and he's having to, Photoshop that dumb bikini model. And then, what is it, the section where, is it Kato? Yeah, I think it's Kato meets that girl, because Kato is still going to college. It's been 6 years, and he's still trying to get through. And he meets that new girl, this freshman in the music club, and he tells her, you know, I think says something kind of, he's trying to be kind of mean to her, but it's almost encouraging what he says to her, where he's like, why don't you just go for it?
Yeah.
Something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting too because he was like, as my my friend Tanajo would say, kind of like he says it and he's like, that wasn't really me saying it.
True. It's funny because I don't know. I kept thinking he was gonna cheat, man.
Yeah, it was kind of like, and then like they kind of like, I don't know. So at that point, I'd actually forgotten about Aya.
Girlfriend.
Yeah, his girlfriend. Yeah. And so like then I was like, wait, who's this person on the other line of the phone? Like
girlfriend.
No, at that point I didn't know that was an established fact. So I was like, huh, okay, yeah, cool. And then later they Ai-chan is talking with Meiko and she's like, how do you deal with Kato? And she's like, oh, I just hit him. And I'm like, oh, you're in a relationship. Oh, okay. That
Also,
makes this very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had the one scene where Rip is riding off. He looks at them and they're both in couples. And he's like, I will not be jealous. And that's where I remembered it from.
Yeah, there's just a little gap in reading for me where I like read a couple chapters and then there was like a day and then came back and I was like, I don't remember this character.
That's true, I read it all in one.
But yeah, no, like once I saw that, I was all like, where I was going with that was that I was all like, shouldn't he be like more in trouble? Like, she basically sniffs him out immediately that like he forgot his like dinner plans with her and went off with like a younger girl.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I don't know how much this plays into it, but she also is not really that into Kato. So she's like,
yeah, but still, I'm like, you're in a committed relationship.
He's done stuff like that before, right?
Yeah.
That's where she says that I smack him. Where she's like, I saw him texting some younger girl, so I smacked him.
See, I thought she was talking about that girl.
Exact incident.
Yeah.
I'm assuming most of his incidents are like that, where he's just being a little too chummy with her, but nothing actually happened. He didn't say anything actually weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, yeah, I agree with that. And I also like, I'm all like, well, why wasn't it a bigger deal? But it's like, it's supposed to be more lighthearted, in that way. Like this book isn't necessarily lighthearted in every way, but yeah, I think that's kind of just the reasoning that. But yeah, I don't.
The band finally takes it seriously. They get together and they do a demo CD, I think it is, and they send it out to different music record labels. I do. Okay, the part where they're like, "Is this what a music producer looks like?" And then they meet the actual guy. He's very suave. And then his offer to them. So the only person out of all the record labels that responds offers them to be a band for a swimsuit model. They're trying to make her into a music star for the appeal. And I love it because, of course, that's the swimsuit model that Taneda was photoshopping earlier.
Nice. Is that the same guy who appears later in the comic?
He appears towards the end.
Okay. I was confused because I was like, that guy looks familiar. And obviously they're portraying him as if he showed up before, but I'm not quite sure where.
Yeah, same guy.
You're having a real life moment, Ceylon, where you're like, I know you. I don't really remember where.
Yep.
So it's interesting because Meiko butts in and she pretty much outright rejects the offer, even though she's technically not part of the band. She tells them, straight up, no, we're not gonna like be some, ghost band for like just so we can position some other girl as the vocalist, especially when Taneda is the vocalist.
Yeah, it's like other like singles, rock stars or whatever, like, solo careerists that like it's like they still have a band. It's just that they don't get any like spotlight, nobody knows them really. And and they're also very replaceable, it's just like, oh well, we'll just get somebody else who's also good if we don't like you anymore. So yeah, I can definitely see.
It comes out right after that scene is that the music producer was at one point in a band and it wasn't quite successful enough. So his career became being like a music producer. And Taneda was like a very enthusiastic fan of his. And he sees him as a sellout now. And it's definitely a sign to Taneda of who he could become. Even if I try my hardest and there's people who like my music, I might just not make it. Like that might not be enough. So that ends up being the only, and Taneda was doing the whole thing where he's like, if this CD doesn't make our band big, then I'm breaking up the band. Very dramatic, but he was serious about it at the time. And it's hard because Meiko is again feeling that whole thing of, was the thing that tempted me to leave. She saw whatever made her leave her job as a sort of demon. She kept referring to it as a demon. And she goes, I wonder if that demon was freedom. She's been tempted by something that's not even like good for her, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. The more interesting part of that is the fact that she refers to herself as the living dead, where she's like, I wanted to leave the workforce because I felt like I wasn't living life. And here I am, aimlessly without a job, not really living life, I feel like.
Yeah, and I don't know if we forgot to mention this, but there's a thread throughout this story so far with Meiko, who she quit her job, and she was like, I don't know what to do, so I guess I'll just lounge around the house all day. And so she was like, I have all this freedom. And as you said, it's like, I feel like I'm the living dead.
Yeah.
She's aimless, know?
Yeah. Which I feel like, I don't know. I feel like that's understandable, like relatable.
So Taneda, they go out on a date, Taneda and Meiko, after this whole incident, and they're like, they're pretty much at the point where they're like, we know our CD isn't going to get any response now. And Taneda offers for Meiko, it's weird to say he offers. He's pretty much like, why don't you go back home and like go back and live with your parents? Why don't I go back and live with my parents and work for them and you can stay here? And she's like, wait, are you breaking up with me? And he's like, yeah, sorta. And she's like, what the heck? When I quit my job, he said those words to her. Where he's like, don't worry, as long as we're together, we can get through this.
Yeah. But he didn't.
Also,
how much did he mean that at the time?
Well, he later on, like right afterwards, when she brings it up again, he's like, I was half asleep.
Yeah.
I don't condone you quitting your job.
That puts pressure on him because, now he's the only one working and he wasn't even bringing in the money that she was.
Yes, she was the breadwinner.
Yeah.
I think both of them at some point say that Meiko says after having a conversation with one of her friends, she comes to the conclusion, she considers the idea that she's putting pressure on Taneda, like on purpose. Did I quit my job to force him to step up to the plate? And is that very selfish of me? like whether I intended to or not.
Yeah.
She catches a cold because she falls in the water when they're fighting about the breakup. And Taneda leaves for a few days. And Meiko goes through the whole motions of she saw a future with Taneda, but it scared her in some ways how complacent she felt with just going along with it. And because of that, she says a gap between our hearts was created. So she feels like they were becoming distant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hard to sparse.
Yeah, and
But-
like it was Taneda was like she couldn't get a hold of him because his phone had gotten killed
during their fight.
Yeah, they basically both fell in the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Taneda calls her up. I don't know, like
5 days.
5 days?
Mhm.
Okay, 5 days later, and he's like, "So here's what's been going on." Went back home. And
No, he went back to his job and he begged for his job
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then just been working on that nonstop. Which, that is awful. If you're like, I have a job that is actually feasible for me to always be at work 24/7.
I think it was necessarily his job. His job did say they were going to make him full-time next week. But I think it was more along the lines, it's unsaid, but I do think he was on purpose just staying there to not.
That's right.
You know, they both needed time apart, he felt.
Yeah. And then he ends up saying, "No, we're not broken up. I'm coming home."
Yeah, I mean,
And I won't break up the band.
Yeah.
I don't care
Yeah.
about some big ambition. I'll just be happy if the band can play together.
Okay. I was under the impression that not breaking up the band meant I'm going to pursue the band as well.
He says, I realized I don't really want to become a musician. I just want to play in the band with the guys and you, Meiko. That's all I
Okay.
really want.
Mhm.
I thought I was going to change the world with my music. So he's kind of, well, in this context of the story, he is kind of giving in to this more complacent, I'll just work and I'll just do this on the side.
Yeah.
Even though I think he does really want to become a bigger musician still. You know?
yeah.
I don't know. Projecting,
That
potentially.
to me, I hear that, and again, it's that like, you know what? I'm just going to be complacent, and it, in a way, it's kind of like if Meiko doesn't feel the same way, I think she really does need to reconsider that relationship. And
Okay, so
in a
right
way, like
after
he'd be holding her back, I guess.
Yeah.
That's as awful as that sounds.
so right after that, he does, as he's on his like motorbike, he is crying and he's asking himself, am I happy? And he's like, yeah, I am. And he's like, really? And starts crying. So I do think it is that whole thing of he's going with the complacent route, but it's not going to make him happy in reality.
Yeah, he's doing what he thinks he needs to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
So spoilers for this entire book, because we're going to go through it to the end. Taneda gets hit by a car because he's distracted driving, crying.
Oh,
Yeah.
on a bike.
Yes.
Okay, I have a
And-
question, and I feel like this is the most valid in the summary. How much do you think that was like 100% accidental?
What do you mean? They like intentionally hit him?
No, the other way around, that he intentionally
Oh.
sped up into traffic.
I don't think it was intentional. And I think that's supposed to be kind of the sad part of it is that it wasn't intentional.
Mm.
It is very much the physical embodiment of him giving in to the easy option and speeding to his death, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, yeah, and I can see that. And actually, now that I think about it, later on, there's kind of a what's the right word? A motif of accidentally like starting to walk into traffic, but that's like also very much an accident. So
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Gotcha.
I think I agree with that. Just a little bit like when I was like reading that scene, it was all like, you know, yellow light and then him like crying and speeding up. And then so it kind of felt that way. But I think I agree with you. I was just unsure.
Honestly, though, that if that was how it happened, I feel like that would be even worse. Like, I would be even more sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, his monologue is, "I'll go home and sing
Yeah.
that love song I never let her hear."
That is awful.
Yeah.
So the rest of the
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
you can tell me later.
Yeah.
So the rest of the story is there's a time skip of about 2 months. Meiko has started working at a florist, and there's this younger guy, probably 18 or so, who's very interested in her romantically, and he keeps trying to like confess and ask her out, and she just disappears before then. And you know, her friends are trying to keep her company. You know, it's only been a few months. And she's like, you know, it's really unfair of Taneda to have died on me right after, you know, we've made up.
Rip has that same. It's like
Yeah,
that
well, he
selfish.
says that, so Meiko goes through the whole thing of, you know, she's pretty much regretting every single decision she's ever made because she's trying to find something that caused his death. You know, if I didn't quit my job, he wouldn't have died. If I didn't go out with him, he wouldn't have died. So forth. If I hadn't said anything that day.
I didn't interpret it that way.
It's very human, I think, to try to find a reason for a death. And
Yeah.
to usually blame yourself for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, she has so many what ifs, she says.
Yeah.
And she ends up smashing the TV, and Rip leaving with the dumplings and getting in his own car crash.
Yeah.
But it's very comical instead.
Yeah, I was like,
He survived that one.
yeah, I was like, you better not die too. What is going on?
Of course. So he does that whole thing where he's like, you know, he goes, when I saw Meiko for the first time, there was love at first sight, and I was so jealous of Taneda for going out with her. Now that Taneda's not here, I can't bring myself to like step in, you know. So he's also feeling lost without Taneda. So all of the friends are like, he was very much a leader character to them, I think. I think at one point they even said when Taneda was getting serious about the band, they said something along the lines of, whatever you choose will follow. Like, you know, you're paving the way for us. Yeah, the rest of the story, Meiko meets with Taneda's father, and, you know, she feels he's a very calming presence. He's a lot like her boyfriend was. And he says to her, you know, you can't regret all this, you know, because she expresses to him that idea that if not for me, he probably wouldn't have died. You know, she's blaming herself again. And he tells her, you know, maybe your role in this is to make sure that he isn't forgotten, you know, to prove that he existed. And that encourages Meiko to take up is it guitar?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the guitar.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't know if this is like something that I should say for the things I don't like, because
We're getting good at it really quick.
yeah, I just like, I don't like that whole like, maybe it's your job to prove that he existed. Like, I'm not entirely sold on whether or not like Like that's like I'm not entirely sold on my interpretation of that, but I just feel like she should move on. That's just allowing her to stay there.
We can discuss this.
Yeah, yeah.
So the rest, yeah. So then, all of the band's characters end up coming together to start the band again. They're practicing, and that girl from earlier shows up again, the one who was kind of flirting with Kato, and she asked them to play as like an opening band for her, and there's going to be like record labels watching because they're interested in her band. I do like it where she's like, what is it? I think you're the one who told me to just do what I could, to go for it. And I did. So yeah, she kind of places the blame / thanks without really saying it on him.
Yeah.
It's like
for helping her like continue her band.
It's like darn, huh?
It's 6 months and this girl's suddenly like getting a debut. There's a little bit of jealousy there. Yeah, so that ends up speeding up the whole process that Meiko needs to get good at singing and the guitar in like a month in time for this concert. And they end up singing Solanin is like seems to be the favorite song they keep gravitating towards that Taneda wrote.
Yeah, it was kind of like his magnum opus or whatever, like his favorite song that he felt like was going to really win them a recording contract or whatever.
Gotcha. I also thought of Creme de la Creme, but I didn't like that.
I mean, I guess, but
yeah, I think Meiko struggles with singing and doing the guitar in front of other people, so she goes to the subway station to do so and ends up chickening out, and she ends up singing for nobody. I mean, she imagines a little boy there, very obviously supposed to be like Taneda.
Oh.
Because like as soon as her friend walks up, she's like, wait, where'd the little boy go? And she's like, what are you talking about? There's nobody here. You're just singing to yourself.
You know, I didn't connect that was Taneda, but I can see that.
Yeah, this little boy. He's like, are you lost? He's like, what about you? Are you lost? Damn, little kid.
yeah.
Which, being a figment of her imagination, that makes even more sense.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's very philosophical. Are you lost?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Meiko ends up, her and Rip talk about it. He's like, it's really selfish of Taneda to have died like that. Resolve themselves to kind of, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like an intense, like, grieving, like, just like, but together, in a very, like, personal way when they're, like, on the beach and they're supposed to be, like, it's the last practice before the show.
And we're late.
Yeah. But yeah, like, they're just, like, really, like, have to get that off their chest, basically.
Couples therapy.
No.
They're not couples.
They're
platonic therapy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's just normal group therapy.
But see, 3's a group, at least.
Hey, Lon, every time you're with one other person, that's not a couple.
It's not a group either.
If Kato had just shown up, I'm sure they would have included him in the crying session.
There you go. Then it'll be group therapy.
But yeah, they resolve themselves to the concert. They see that music producer guy again. He admits that he's sort of... He doesn't say it outright, but like because of... Actually, no, he does say it outright. Because of Taneda, he quit doing his like kind of sellout part of his job, and he's looking at like smaller musicians and trying to give them a chance. which is putting him in the bad graces of his own record label company that he's part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he even
And
says that it might ruin his life.
yeah, if you see that glasses kid again, tell him that he might have ruined my life. Which they don't tell him that he died.
Yeah.
I wanted them to just outright be like, that dude died.
I feel like that would maybe, like, in the correct context, it'd be like, oh, so I am ruining my life.
I have no one to blame now. Myself. Yeah, the band pretty much goes through, this time, group therapy in the concert, I would say. You know, they really give it their all, and they put all their emotion into the song.
So, what was there like a pause where she was like, she wasn't saying anything?
Yeah, she was having trouble at first because it's her first time singing in front of such a big audience.
Gotcha. Because sometimes I think that kind of moment happens a couple of times, and it's kind of confusing to me as to what's going on. Also, do we
She's just standing there monologuing.
Do we know the name of the band? Because they said it. I just don't remember.
I thought it was like Rotten or something. I think they say it a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's probably on the front of their CDs or something. But
Yeah.
Well. So don't take our word for that, but that's what we'll go with. That their band is Rotten because that's the best we got.
so mean.
Not
It's
so
Roti.
roadie.
Yeah.
What?
ROTTI.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. That's I would have pronounced that Roddy, and that's why I was
Yeah.
thinking Rotten.
Okay, I see.
Roadie.
I'm pronouncing it like the name of a dessert I know of. So.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, let's go with that then. Roadie.
Roti. Okay.
Yeah, so they give their all in the concert, and it's funny because afterwards, the record label guy keeps trying to contact them because he's really interested in their band, and they're just sort of not about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that was weird because she was like, all gung ho, like, but then, like, after that performance, they don't do anything.
I mean, I literally think it's what you were saying, Talon. It is her moving on in some ways. It was about doing one performance that was technically in memory of Taneda.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, they gave it their all, and then that's kind of it.
Mm-hmm.
Which it does leave room where they might pick it up again, but you know.
Yeah. Did your omnibus have the epilogue chapter?
I mean, that's pretty much, isn't that the epilogue chapter where she's just moving out?
The one where it's like the future and she's with the guy from the flower shop.
Oh, is that who that was?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think
okay.
so anyway.
I don't think I had that.
Okay.
She's just hanging out with him at the end.
No.
Mine has the words "the end," so
Yeah.
there should be no more.
There's a secret
Maybe-
chapter 29.
Okay, so he might have written that like later. and
Yeah.
added that.
Okay.
So she's with that flower shop guy.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's like, I mean, basically what happens is like, you know, it's years later and she's meeting up with Aya, and basically she's kind of like, I think I might quit my job again.
Yeah.
She's like, what? And then she's
Yeah.
like, yeah, and I think that we might like, you know, we might like try to move into a bigger place, blah, blah, blah. And she's all like, yeah, but like, you know, kind of like their conversation shows like ways that she hasn't changed and ways that she has changed. But then it comes out that she's pregnant. And then it comes out too that, like, basically I'm like, wow, this is like the least climactic kind of like thing to me. Like I would hate this, but so basically like the chapter starts where the boyfriend is like, just asleep basically, and like or she's like, you got another package, and he's like, okay, just leave it, whatever. And then later they're texting at the end, and he was like, did you
Oh yes. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
did you ever like open the package? And she was like, no. And then he was all like, this is what was in it, and takes a picture, and it's a ring.
Bro, honestly, I love that.
I didn't. I mean, I was like, I don't really care that much because I'm not invested in this particular relationship.
That's
but like,
fair.
also, I'm like, why would you text the ring? Like,
Ring like Amazon to their like front door.
yeah.
Well, again, the plan I gather was she'd open the package, and then she'd scream, and he'd like, I'm up.
I open the package. There's a smaller package inside. I am disappointed. Leave it alone.
And also, he said leave it. Like, he wasn't.
No. Again, you're supposed to
didn't know
read
what
between my lines. Read between the lines.
He's too half asleep to pull it off, right?
Yeah.
I did not have that epilogue where it is
Okay.
confirmed that a relationship happens, and I am fine without that epilogue.
No, there you go.
But it is a self-contained story.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess if I had to say what the story was about, it is about the grieving process. There's a lot of setup, then there's the death, then there's, processing the death.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say it's like 50% also about like growing up and figuring out like the complexities of growing up, and then like 50% about grieving.
Yeah.
I would say the trend line, as you were, is figuring out who you are and your purpose.
Yeah, that's definitely a theme too.
Yeah, I definitely would probably characterize that as probably the main theme-ish, because is it Solanin that she listens to and she's like, wait, is this a breakup song?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She listens to it, and later on she comes to the conclusion, I think that was him letting go of who he used to be. That wasn't him saying a physical person he was leaving. It's himself.
Yeah.
And so that goes along with your idea of growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Because in some ways he's very childish at the beginning of the story. So I don't know if you guys saw the afterword by Asano,
No.
but so this is he wrote it in 2008. He said that he drew Solanin when he was the character's age. He had just graduated from college and was feeling insecure about my ability to succeed as a manga artist, and whether I would be able to continue to draw manga that were true to myself. So he tried to get a depiction of the times as experienced by my generation: lovers, friends, money, jobs, a society with unclear future, one's own pride, all of those tangling together, daily life. And his last part, he says, there's nothing cool about these characters. They're just your average 20-somethings who blend into the backdrop of the city. But the most important message in our lives don't come from musicians on stage or stars on television. They come from the average people all around you, the ones who are just feet from you where you stand. That's what I believe. So
That's really
I
good.
thought that was a very, very telling about the whole story in general. And I do really like that that last part he says, where it's not from like some celebrity. You're not going to have the most profound thing said.
Yep.
Yeah, just thinking about it, I'm like, it's like, I mean, I know what he's saying, but also it's like a little bit ironic because it's like that like kind of profound thing coming from like now a famous mangaka. But I mean, like, both can be true, and it's not like, he's a celebrity either. He's just celebrated. Just a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Oh, you'd say he is a celebrity?
A little bit. I mean,
Okay.
he's a recognizable name. If you say Goodnight Poon Poon, that is a big manga.
Yeah, I guess like in comparison to like American celebrity and like kind of like almost like worship fan culture, you know, like I don't
How would you
know.
say that?
But I mean, maybe though,
It,
maybe
well, it's also he's a foreign
right.
figure, so
Yeah.
it might feel different to us.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Less dramatic.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, like we talked about, it has a lot of the hallmarks of his usual work. It's very daily life.
Mhm.
Um.
Mhm.
I think I tend to like his work that is, despite the fact that it's slice of life, because most of the time I'm like, slice of life, count me out.
Mhm.
Um, and well, I'll talk about the things I don't like later. Let's talk about the things we like.
Yeah.
Mhm. Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say um the characters were really relatable. Talon kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier.
Mhm.
Um, and like, yeah, I mean, with any good slice of life, you get attached to them. Like, it just like, um, yeah, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna end up caring about these characters, and I'm like, I care about them.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah.
care about them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely same way where I'm like, these guys are annoying,
Yeah.
No,
but they're my annoying characters.
no, I definitely like. I wasn't as into this comic in the beginning, but then after like the volume 2, I was like, okay, I'm invested.
I mean, I count the like turning point of Tenedo's death as being really an attention getter for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I I was spoiled since I knew it was gonna happen, since I thought the whole story was just about, her doing this thing, her boyfriend instantly dying after she quits
Uh,
her job, and her having to deal with that.
so
But yeah.
so were you reading it as in like, man, when is this death happening?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm always reading stories like that. I'm like, when are you gonna die? Good for this world.
Oh.
Um, yeah, so I was a little bit anticipation,
Mm.
Yeah.
get it over with already.
I mean, without being spoiled, I did feel like there was like some foreshadowing a little bit, like, the releasing the little paratrooper from the fireworks off the like skyscraper and stuff, and
Yeah.
him leaving for like 5 days. I was like, oh no, he's dead. But then he calls
Yeah.
back and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, he's safe, he's good. And
Yeah.
He dies.
like, dang it.
It's pretty well done for a death. I don't know, deaths can be so melodramatic. I mean, can they be though? You are dying.
Yeah.
You'd go all the way.
Yeah.
You mean unjustifiably dramatic?
Well, where they sit there and then they monologue for 5 minutes as you hold them in your arms and you're like, just get over with it.
Oh man, just makes
You
me
had
think
something
of
important to say. You should have done it earlier.
Deadpool 2.
It's the emotional beats, even though in some ways I feel like sometimes they're very contrived, where characters break out into like crying or they say something very profound and they're just some person. Um, Somehow it makes it work. Like, it's also it goes a little bit into the like harder the parts I didn't like. I mean, it's a lot of monologuing. Everybody's constantly talking about what they're thinking and feeling
Mhm.
deep down. It is a good way of showing there's a lot of depth to how the characters feel. They're supposed to be, at least. And if you're able to get through that, then you do come to really understand the characters better, and like the little contradictions they have and what they're trying to deal with, where they're split between two ideas. As always, Asano is very good at that. Blending regular life with regular decisions that are very I don't know how to say it. It's not strong, but it's not dramatic.
Well, I mean,
But
they're
you're
putting
like
a lot into it.
a lot of other stories I feel like would have been like, I quit my job, like I'm free, and it's it's very realistic, this story, in that I quit my job. I only have this much time I can spend on my money. Like, this is real life. I can't just. She's not just suddenly all happy, oh, I'm finally free of my job. It's that thing we said again, where she feels like the living dead, because in the end, she's chosen to give up on the goal of continuing her job, or the purpose of continuing her job, and she's looking for another purpose. And that's not a fun experience. She has these moments where it is nice. She's like, I'm very happy to be with my boyfriend or to be with my friend group. But deep down, she does feel aimless. And there's real consequences to her quitting her job.
Yeah.
And the more you say it, the more, to me, it kind of solidifies in my mind that he does a very good job of making, just like, of simulating real life, I suppose, as you were saying. Like, to me, these, I feel like, would be very real emotions that anybody would have given their situation, and, being relatable. And so, to me, like, I gotta commend. I'll commend him for that.
Yeah, there's I would say the characters aren't super unique, and I don't think they're supposed to be. They're very everyday people.
Right.
And in some ways, the struggles they're going through are very universal for that age group. Funny, we're probably around that age group, actually.
Yeah. Very much so. Very much so.
Do we feel aimless?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of why it felt so relatable. Was I was all like, "Yeah, I've been without work. I've I've been low on cash.
Wondering if college was worth it.
Yeah, wondering if college is worth it. Wondering if I'm going to have to move back in with my parents.
That's rough.
Yeah.
I mean, I related with Taneda more on the. There was a scene where I think he was recounting. I can't remember what it was, but I think it was like a dream or something, where he was he was talking to a bunch of his like aspects of himself. Yeah.
Yes, those are so good.
Yeah.
and he was talking about how, like, I have this bad habit of wanting to know everything before making a decision, and I was like, yeah.
God,
Analysis paralysis.
All the different things. He's like, suspicion, uncertainty, lust, apathy. The Japanese economy is going to collapse, so our future is worthless no matter what. Just give it. Yeah, his whole, all the different versions of him picketing. So dumb. Oh yeah, his whole, God. I love how Asano does not shy away from, like, the, like, kind of dirtier aspects of, like, humans thinking. Less so in this story. If you read Goodnight Poon Poon, I would say that is one of the most depressing manga I've ever read. And, like, its violence and how sad and dark daily life can be.
Yeah.
Even as, like, a child. Have you read it?
No, I haven't, but two separate humans I've talked to has been all like, yeah, I was going to start it, but I just need to be in, like, a good headspace, and I just haven't been.
It is beyond bizarre. I don't know how to describe it. But there's the one part where Taneda, when he's meeting with himself in his mind, the lust one, where he's like, Meiko kind of sucks to sleep with. It's like, geez.
Yeah.
No.
Is that why you're gonna, like, break up with her? I like his other one too. I don't know if you guys caught it. He has this other part that he's imagining when he's at work, where he's imagining his best friend's father as, like, is it the alligator?
Oh, right. Yeah, I don't remember. enough to like
Yeah.
fill in the details. But
Please expand on that.
Do you remember? So, do you guys know the story of like when you drop like your shovel in a lake or a well or something, an alligator comes up. I'm probably totally recounting this wrong. An alligator comes up and goes, "Is this your shovel?" And they hold out this beautiful golden one. And
okay,
and then
Nope.
they hold out a regular one. They go, "Or is this your shovel?"
I've definitely heard a version of that. Not quite that way, but I've also heard multiple versions in the past.
Okay.
So
So yeah, the whole story is, if you're greedy and you choose the golden one that isn't yours, then you don't get it. And if you're honest and you choose yours, then you get given the golden one.
mm-hmm.
So, if honesty will be rewarded kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Taneda, what he's given the two guitar ends and said, "Did you drop this glorious opportunity for a golden future? Or how about this resignation to an ordinary silver future?" He's like, he's like unsure. And I think he says, "I think it was something more important than either of those." And the guy goes, "No, time's up, bye," and leaves with both of them.
That
So
I vaguely
kind of,
remember that.
Yeah.
so kind of indecision
Mm-hmm.
goes unrewarded.
No, I'm glad that you brought up that fable basically though, because I didn't understand the context of that scene. I definitely remembered it, but I was like, okay, this is kind of weird but interesting, but I don't understand all the way. And now it makes a lot more sense with that. I think the one I heard was like a woodsman, and like so it was a gold axe and a normal axe.
Yeah, that's the famous one. I'm probably thinking of someone else's parody of it again.
Yeah. But yeah, I was all like these guitars and one gold and silver. I don't get it. But that makes a lot more sense.
It is interesting for him to be like, it's more important than the like glorious future or this regular ordinary life.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if in some ways he's talking about Meiko. But yeah, that's another thing I guess I like about the overall story is it's very dense with like all this thought, the self-reflection they have, and it can be interpreted in so many different ways, I feel like. So it's there's a lot of depth to it.
Yeah. And also, I just realized another really important theme to this is contemplating what happiness is. Like, I mean, we've kind of said that the characters ask that, so it's like almost obvious, but I didn't think about it in that way still. It's like, yeah, because like it is really interesting. I know, like, in basically like my ethics class, there was like, talking about the difference, like what like pleasure is and what happiness is, and like one of them that I think that Tanado would like kind of agree with what this book is kind of like presenting for happiness is like being with like your friends and family and like their enjoyment and stuff like that, and just like it's not about like actual like anything like material, like having stuff that you like, but like them being around and happy, basically. And
yeah, the scene right before the record, before they meet with the label company. Even if the path is difficult and takes us to the ends of the earth, as long as you're with me, and it cuts off there. And so I think it's along those lines, like you're saying. It doesn't matter the future as long as I'm with you, kind of thing. Not even in like a romantic sense, but just companionship in general.
Yeah. Was that also the fireworks scene?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I really liked that scene in general.
Yeah, kind of finding happiness in small moments.
Yeah, I already mentioned this before, but I guess if still talking about things we did like, I enjoyed the ending. I I guess I do have conflicting feelings about the ending, the farewell chapter.
Yeah.
Because like, I like the ending. I like the fact that Meiko is finding her happiness, like finding what that is, and for her, that's. I'm assuming they're saying it as she is having a child, and that makes her really happy.
Oh, okay. You are talking about the epilogue chapter.
Yeah.
Okay. It, for some reason, I thought that you meant the chapter before that.
Oh, okay.
We're moving out. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Interesting. I think I disagree actually, but
You disagree that you liked it or that it was saying that?
that I liked it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So to me, like it was just kind of like a happy ending, and that's where I was like, okay, so like you weren't like just stuck in how you were, that confusion, that uncertainty. Like, yeah, you're still uncertain, but you are figuring it out. And so to me, I was like, okay, cool. Like you're making progress. Like I like that.
Mm-hmm. That give you some hope, Taylon. Everybody can figure it out eventually, maybe,
Yeah.
hopefully.
I mean, no, I wasn't necessarily thinking over myself, but
I'm gonna disagree with you there.
all right.
And tell you what you were thinking.
What I wasn't thinking.
I do think it is very subconscious, but I do think the majority of the time when we like something, it does have to do with ourselves.
Yeah, that's fair.
Whether we know it or not.
No,
yeah, the general premise of the beginning of the story, I know I've said it already. I just really like it. I like, her being that thing after college where it's like you just have to get a job and then you've accomplished. And there's so many of the time it's like, man, I can't get a job. It's so hard. And it's a real struggle. And she's accomplished this. She got a job, but she's not happy. It is that thing again of like just checking off a box isn't going to make you happy, especially a list that somebody else has made.
Yeah. And I mean, I relate to that in just the sense that I understand that, or at least, the way that I view the world, like just having a job, going through college, like that's not the best thing that could happen to you.
Right. Yeah.
And especially, and I've seen this in my own life, like where going to school and doing what I had to do wasn't the thing that really motivated me. It was the people that I knew, the relationships that I had made, and getting to know God. And so it was like, to me, all that just made sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like it's a little bit of an easy way out to just be like, okay, society tells me to do this. And so once I do it, I'll be fine, right?
Right.
And then you get there and you're like, well, is this it?
Yeah.
Why am I not happy yet? I did the things people told me to do.
Right.
Yeah. It, as we said, very perfect for our age group. College students, if you want something to read to make you depressed, perhaps happy.
No. Then also include the farewell or the last chapter, the epilogue, and then you could say, oh, so I'll just find my happiness 10 years later.
All right.
All I need to do is have a baby, and I'll be happy, right, guys?
All right.
That is not what I'm saying.
We'll get to.
But you kept going back to like Meiko's like goal. She finally finds happiness in having a baby. I don't know about that, man. So let's get into what we don't like.
Wait. No, I had something that I really wanted to say I liked, and I should have said it earlier because honestly, we went from like more specific up to more broad, and this is more specific now. But
Go for it.
Basically, I thought it was really interesting that so like basically like there are more like in the moment thoughts that Meiko has that are in thought bubbles, but then there are whole blacked out panels. And this does overlap a little bit with the art, but I really feel like this is more like a writing thing. So there's whole panels that are blacked out and then words. And so it's like using a panel as a caption box, basically.
Okay, I see what you mean.
And I thought that was a really interesting thing to do. It really like added weight to those thoughts in particular and time to those thoughts, basically. Like
It's almost like a reminiscing in the future kind of part.
Yeah. And
It's really interesting to me the way you described it, how like one is in the present, she's thinking this right away, versus reflection, a deeper narration, almost layers of narration. And it's so funny that like all it has to do is like I just don't understand how it communicated that to you and then also communicated that to me. Like it's so weird that it like worked.
Yeah. It's like very much using the like Scott McCloud TM methods of like, of comic language, but like messing with them to like create a specific effect, just like here, we're this like totally visual medium, no image, just words. Yeah. But so yeah, I just found that was really interesting, and yeah, the deeper layers of narration. And yeah, it was just like once I realized that that's what that was, I was like that's such a like novel thing to even like try to do, where especially like I was like, thinking about the ways that a comic page is like broken up basically, and like how captions are kind of in their own way panels, and like basically breaking down that definitional border and being like, yeah, they're basically just the same thing. Might as well just make a big one.
Well, and I think too, like, to me, having a actual panel for those thoughts is a lot more effective in communicating the like thoughtfulness of them, the
Gravity
deep,
of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
than having a like a narration like box. What did you call it? I forgot.
Caption box.
Caption
yeah.
box. Yeah. Is a
Yeah,
lot
a little tiny caption box in the corner
Yeah.
of an actual panel versus giving them a whole panel.
right? Because then they're the subject of that panel. Whereas if it's just a caption box, that's not the subject. It's almost like a fly. It's like, go away. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Very fleeting in comparison.
yeah.
It's good you brought that up because it's definitely something I liked. How about getting the things I didn't like?
Yeah. Go ahead now.
I also didn't like it sometimes. It's less of that I didn't like it. A lot of things I'm gonna say are less of things I didn't like and more of things that were just like, it's a little bit hard. It's hard to juggle between the two. I mean, we said this. I read this in like an hour.
Impressive
To be
feat.
fair, huh?
Impressive feat. I couldn't do
To
that.
be fair, I took a break from drawing. I went, probably start this. Like, it's almost midnight. I'm like, if I get halfway through, I'll stop and I can draw again. And so, might have rushed a little bit. Despite the fact that I really like the beginning struggle, Meiko's whole monologue, I don't want to say I relate to her whole thing where she's like, everybody sucks.
You don't want to say that, but you are.
Gotten in trouble in the past for saying I love that character. They hate everybody. Yeah. I'm just, she's like, I'm not cut out to be a productive member of society. I think the page that really sold me on the story when I first saw it out of context, where I was like, man, I need to read this story. She's like we said, adults are made of who cares. I have a pot belly, but who cares? My nose hairs show, but who cares? As long as I'm not caught, who cares? I'm totally insincere, but who cares? There's war, famine, disease, and thousands of people are dying, but as long as I'm happy, who cares? It's in some ways she sees everybody as kind of cruel, although some of those are just like appearance things.
Right, yeah.
She goes, I have no idea what to do with myself. And while I wait for an epiphany, I feel the toxins collecting in my body. That kind of idea that while I wait around for things to happen to me, I'm kind of dying here. I thought that was very compelling to at least read about. But man, that beginning part is a little bit of a slog.
Yeah. Yeah, I think...
Okay, so it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, and I think, like, there's definitely, like, I mean, it still would have been a slog. Like, obviously, you thought it was a slog and you had context, but I really need to remember to, like, at least read, like, the book description, like, non-spoilery description when I have no context. Like, even the cover doesn't give any context, because I'm like, what is this story? What is going on? I
think it's important to go in blind for a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they can't tell you what it is, then that's the story's fault.
Right. Yeah. That's true. But I'm like, I mean, at least like...
Probably would have made it a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah. Or at least the genre of like slice of life. So I knew that it was supposed to be.
Oh, I forgot to mention that. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Also, it is Asano, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I don't know. When I was reading it in the beginning, I was just like, I feel like there was things I just like missed reading it. I was just like, I don't understand. And I couldn't tell you what I don't understand, but I don't understand it.
Yeah. Also that like, and I don't know like how much of this is like a translation thing and how much is just like, I mean, ultimately it's going to be like technically a little bit related to translation no matter what, but the beginning dialogue was a little choppy where it was just like, this feels like what you're trying to communicate could have been communicated better. And so that's like kind of taken me out of this where I'm like, this isn't how humans talk.
Gotcha.
There's the whole scene where Taneda has like left for the 5 days, and Meiko, in some ways they have kind of broken up for that moment because he's like trying to break up with her and she refused, and then he just left. And she's not sure if he's going to come back. And that whole part where we talked about where she goes in a little bit deeper, she's like, I saw our future together and I was complacent. It was amazing to me how not unhappy I was about it. I wasn't, but at the same time that made me so dissatisfied that I was willing to be so complacent in such a boring future in some ways. That's my interpretation of what she said. And I'm going to say that like that section is so hard for me to parse. I think in some ways it's because it's such a complex, there's so many complex ideas there she's feeling. But also, yeah, maybe the wording is a little bit, because she's like, I saw our future and I was fine with it and that scared me. And she goes, at the same time, Taneda was like oxygen. I couldn't imagine myself with or without him.
Yeah. I mean, it's
very hard.
Like, honestly, like, that's a little bit later in the story, and I felt like, it got a lot better. It was like the first few chapters for me that it was all like, just peak confusion where I'm like, this is boring. These people are talking weird. and I don't know where this is heading. Somebody said something about a demon. Is there going to be a real demon? Like, when's that going to show up?
Honestly, like, I thought that demon motif would have, like, I mean, maybe I just missed it, but I thought that demon motif would have been more throughout the story. Like, it felt like it was more like in the beginning and then at the end.
Yeah, it was just said at the beginning, and she says, she has that brief mention where she's like, that demon was freedom, wasn't it?
No.
But yeah, they could have hit it a little bit better.
Yeah, I did get the feeling that like the way that the story was written was like all, at once. It was written out, like the outline basically, which is the way a lot of people do it. But like, yeah, because there was like, a lot of callbacks to the very beginning that were only at the end, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just an observation.
It's okay if you're reading it in one go like me, but it's also a very hard book to read in one go because there's so much packed in there. So yeah, like you're saying, I also feel along those same lines that what Taylon was saying, that some motifs just were there and then they weren't. There wasn't some follow through with them. And I think it would have been pretty impactful if there was some follow through. I mean, the ones they did follow through were very good, but what you can definitely tell there were some that were just left behind. I was like, man, I want that demon motif more.
Yeah. Instead, we got the bikini model motif.
I love her. She's just on the wall as they're drinking, and then later on, it's like, yeah, do you want to prop up this lady's career?
Man, you would have been actually a really good turn for that, is like if we got to meet her. Because like I feel like it's all like she represents like all of the bad, the bad of the job, the bad of like, like settling. And it's like, what if she was like, she's still a person, basically.
I would say that happens in a lot of Asano's stuff. So if this was a longer series, we definitely would have met her.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that would have been fun. I did kind of expect it. I expected her, man, and even Meiko's like boss and her coworker who are cheating, possibly.
Yeah. I mean,
her coworker is like going out with some like head of a company.
I mean, at that point though, like, she's not working there. It's not her job. This is not her business. Like, who cares?
It is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is just like internalized gossip. Like, like nobody to really tell this to. But like, weird. I also was unsure if like that is how we were supposed to interpret her use of the word adultery. I was all like, are they? Because like the boss kind of hit on her when she was still working there. And so, which I mean, like, I guess cheaters gonna cheat.
Honestly though, like when I read that, I was kind of like, this feels like you are hitting on her, but this could just be like, hey, let's have a work dinner, which I still wouldn't be comfortable with, but
yeah,
I was like, maybe.
I mean, I think that's the whole thing, right? There's too much gray area where like, I don't like how much this could become something else.
Yeah.
I didn't get to mention it during the things I do like, but I really love Asano's sense of humor. I can't tell if it's very Asian or not in some ways, the very randomness. Or like even when they're on the boat and like the old guys are there and then suddenly there's like what is it? Carnival dancer next to them.
I think I kind of like, I know what you're talking about, but I was like so focused on the dialogue and what was happening. I just like.
But that's sort of his humor, right? Where it's like something really weird and random. Even the little paratrooper. Like, it's so weird. And you're like, does this mean something? Like, I don't know. It's kind of funny how bizarre it is, though.
Yeah, and I kind of noticed that, like, I mean, this is a little less bizarre, but also still, like, the way that the boys act sometimes, just in terms of, like, putting the chopsticks in the nose and stacking up on top of each other. And it's like, why are you doing that? It's like, it's part of a bet. It's like, what?
He's riding him, he's on his back, and he's like a motorcycle. Pretending he's a motorcycle. Or what is it? They're like, I don't know how to describe it. When they're open mouth, like at each other, like when frogs fight.
Yeah.
It's like, are they gonna kiss?
Yeah. What's going on? Like, they were arguing about, like, the song and the recording time and like, you know, like I need more time for my bass, like this is boring to play on the bass. But I'm like, but also you're saying that like while your phases are very, very close. Like,
I do think it is very much. I think it's supposed to be both, where it's like this is fighting is so much almost kissing in such a weird way, but this is also sort of just like how frogs fight, you know. And a lot of other animals that don't have the hands for it. They're just at each other's faces.
Okay.
So yeah.
I mean, I just think it was supposed to be awkward and weird in that specific way.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely funny for most of the parts. Some parts I was just like, why is there a carnival dancer there?
Yeah.
I was waiting for the joke part to actually happen, other than just like weird, bizarre thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I feel like part of that is like, you know, it kind of goes into like, along with the aspect of, you know, it'll be like normal people who like, you know, give you your like inspiration and ideas and stuff. Like reality is kind of dreamlike too, where it's like, there's just like, when you tell the story, it's like, yeah, and there was a carnival dancer there. And I was like, wait, what? What do they have to do? I'm like, I don't know. They were just there. Like,
they're part of the cruise, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Along those same lines, there's just not a lot of follow through with certain parts. I know we already said this as far as like the motifs, but also just like, there's a lot of characters who are introduced and you would kind of expect them to show up again.
Mm-hmm.
I guess like Meiko's mother, I really expected her to like at least show up one more time. I mean,
Fair. She didn't even tell her mother.
I know. I was like,
that killed me.
I was like, Meiko, and then I
Yeah.
was like, wait, I'm maybe if I was in her position, I might do the same thing.
Anyway, it's a chance to deny it happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
is a very
Fair.
human thing again. But also, I guess her mom, by the end of her mom's whole chapter, is just like, you know, you guys are gonna be fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sorry I yelled at you, Meiko, for quitting your job and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
You're an adult. You can make your own decisions.
Yep.
So I guess it is in some ways just resolved, which, you know, I don't know. Maybe he didn't need another thing to drag out for the entire series, and for us to be like, who is this again at the end?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess in some ways, I really expected the story to be a little bit more compact. I
Mhm.
don't know if it would be better if it was more compact, because there's a lot he's shoved in. Maybe put a little bit of things to the cutting board.
Mm.
I do feel like
Yeah.
the scene where Rip and Meiko cry before the rehearsal. I don't know if they needed that. I guess
Really?
I kind of felt like that was like you're saying, Taylor, where it's like, it's not really a group therapy if one group member's not there. So then they have their group therapy at the concert. So it's like,
That's fair. Yeah.
did they need their little, you know, two people paired therapy?
See, I would have cut the. I don't know how many chapters. There's at least 2 chapters where it's just Rip and Kato, like their own specific chapters. I would be like,
Like those though. I really like Rip's chapters
mm-hmm.
because he's very much on his own,
Yeah.
and that comes with its own like loneliness
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think.
and
Oh, go
dealing
ahead.
with that old guy.
I mean, to me, like cutting those chapters to me, like it is not necessarily because I dislike them, but because I feel like they would be least part of the overall narrative, like least relevant.
Yeah. Also, I just want to speak up on. I actually really liked the crying on the beach scene. So I disagree that would be definitely not the one that I would cut. I would be tempted to cut the shoot, I'm forgetting characters' names. Like, I mean, I guess other than Rip, the other one,
Kato?
Kato, yeah,
Yeah.
Kato. basically like the scene or chapter with the freshman girl, because like in the end, like it provides characterization for him obviously, but then it's like it's more of a facilitator for the plot later on,
Right.
where it's like, you know, now she is all like, hey, come play for us or whatever.
Which you could have just, I mean, to me, you could have just simply said, yeah, we were in college together. That's it. And that's all you needed.
It is pretty bare bones what they gave her. I was expecting
That's
more
true.
for her.
Yeah.
So it is already very much just like, hello, you know, reader, and then bye. And
Yeah.
then chapters later, 20
Yeah.
chapters later, hi again.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm here for plot.
Yeah, that's pretty much like like either cut it and like have it like way less, or expand on that more, because you definitely were like, you know, she was, you know, like there was that part where he's looking at her ID, her old school ID.
Yeah,
Is-
what she used to look like.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, it's easy to change your appearance. It's hard to change, you know, the
Yeah, your
rest,
personality.
what's inside.
Yeah. And so like I'm all like, yeah, expand on that. That's like all interesting. You know, you have a backstory too. Like
She's pretty and she's succeeding at everything. So is that really an ordinary person? Design
That's
is
a good
so
point.
cute. I love it.
yeah.
I just like feel like Asano would be like, oh, all right, side story now.
Yeah.
Spin-off.
I was expecting, I actually, instead of the bikini model, I expected them to get there and him be like, yeah, here's an up and coming artist. Can you guys like kick out Taneda and have her be the main focus?
Mm-hmm.
But
Gotcha.
it is very corporate to be like, here is person we are already propping up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, and it did seem like I think that she ended up winning that contest that they entered, right? The other
I think
college
she's already
girl.
said that she kind of won. That's why they're doing the extra concert.
Yeah.
Because that was a concert. The extra concert that they played at was when they won, and they were opening for them.
Yeah. That's what I meant. Like basically, I guess I was kind of organizing facts in my own head, but yeah,
Okay.
basically because they did not win the contest that they entered when they met with the record label. They were
It wasn't a contest, though, was it? I thought they were just mailing out their stuff.
well, yeah, but this one was a contest. They say that pretty explicitly.
Okay.
Yeah, but they were like, "Oh, we won," and then he was like, "No, actually, I called you for a different reason. We liked it, but not enough to win the contest.
Oh yes, okay. Yeah.
We just think that you'd be good in this position." And then I just
In a lifetime, yeah.
yeah, so like I can really see though where it would have made sense to like kind of combine those two things and have the college girl basically be in that role because she did win the contest.
Gotcha.
Life's not that connected.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of different parts I feel like we could argue about. There is a lot of through lines to follow. Like I said, it's just a little bit hard to juggle.
Yeah. Also, I do need to finally say my piece about my disagreement on the epilogue chapter.
Of I liked it and you didn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. Like, I
okay.
mean, just the fact that I didn't like it and why.
Okay, all right.
Not a happy ending. It's
Yeah.
like going back on everything it was about. Man.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. Like, yeah, I think that there's a part of me that's like, am I just unhappy with like the result because I had my own interpretation of what should be the future? And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think that that's entirely it. But like, I definitely don't like what they chose. Yeah, for one thing, I'm like, yeah, just like settling down, having a kid, and getting married. I'm like, that's definitely a lot more of like, what you're supposed to do in air quotes.
Gotcha.
And like, I mean, it's not, you can definitely make that choice, like, confidently and like, know in yourself that that's what you want. But that isn't made clear in the epilogue chapter either.
What's not made clear that she made that decision?
Yeah, that she's not just like living life like, by the standards of what others like think.
Okay.
I guess.
It doesn't feel like it's properly foreshadowed that this would have been something fulfilling for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, it is very much, a lot of the story is about like, is this mainstream way of finding happiness really gonna work for me? And so it feels very much kind of a letdown to just be like, yeah, it is. Like, because you can totally find happiness from like starting a family and like settling down with someone you love. But man, was that what the story was about? Did she just need to find the right person to settle down with and start the family she loved?
Gotcha.
Like maybe, but that just wasn't what the story was about, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's why I liked the fact that she rejected him, where she's like, I'm just not looking for this right now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
See, I have
She just had to get over her dead boyfriend, guys. That's all she had to do, and then she could be with the guy who likes her in the other room.
I disagree with that interpretation, because to me it's not him saying like you find happiness by settling down and having a family. And I agree with you that it's not properly foreshadowed that it would make her specifically happy. Because there's a line specifically where it's like, oh yeah, you've been wanting a child for a while now, right? And it's like, wait, what? When?
Yeah.
Like, I agree with you there. To me, though, what I guess I interpret is more like she herself found something that made her happy, not specifically having a kid and a family. Like, if it was
in
anything
the last
else,
chapter.
right? I mean, if it was anything else, where she was like, this is making me happy, I would have been like, oh, that's awesome. Like, she found something that is making her happy. Like, she is making progress,
Yeah.
And so that to me is how I interpreted that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm basing this all on like Cody's description of the epilogue because I did not read it.
Right. Yeah. Fair. I guess, in some ways it's like I didn't like it, so that colors the description.
Yeah. But just in general, I just don't like the idea of it, the concept of it. I really like how open-ended in some ways the actual ending, I'm going to use that word.
Yeah.
The actual ending is where it's like, because she could end up with Rip. She could end up with anybody. Like, she could end up with nobody. And that's not quite the important part. The important part is that she's happy alone, and then thus she will be happy with somebody else, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know necessarily if that was actually the point of it. It's such a finality of being like, and she ends up with so and so, and this specific thing happens. And I guess in some ways that goes against a little bit of the generic nature of her character, where she could be anybody, kind of, and she could go in any direction from here. It's like, nah, she goes in this specific direction, and it's the best one for her. I'm like,
Yeah, it very much, it feels also like, like fans were all like, hey, what happens though?
That's fair. I can see that.
Also, the part you mentioned where she's like, I'm going to quit my job again. Man, what was this whole story about then?
Yeah, and that's part of something that I didn't like, was to me like, here we are, and you're making some progress, but then you're also like still acting the same way. Like, I find it understandable. It's just kind of like,
Well,
It is human nature.
yeah, I think that that it's funny that I disagree about that. In my mind, what that was supposed to be like, I mean, you're definitely supposed to be shocked because you don't understand the context of what's happening yet. Just like her friend that she's talking to, it's like again, like what? But then it like because it comes out that she's
Because of the baby.
the
Okay.
baby and stuff like
That's
that,
true.
it's like
okay.
it's basically like life kind
It's
of
a
repeats,
cheeky-
but it's
I did not get that. Okay. So I thought her having a baby and then her quitting her job were kind of unrelated. and actually no, that has nothing to do with what we're saying.
okay. Yeah. So it was a little cheeky. It was a little bit like, but also I think that there's even more than that of like, there is like when she first quit her job, it wasn't necessarily a mistake. She's even moved past viewing it that way. It's just what happened. But there is also a more like correct context to quit your job. She has a plan. She knows what she's doing.
He has a purpose.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yep.
And so in that way, like, there was character growth
Gotcha.
that I appreciated, even if I didn't like the purpose that she found.
Gotcha. Some other things I didn't like, and this goes back to like not following through on the motifs. But to me, like they gave Meiko a conclusion. But I would like to see Kato and Rip have a conclusion. But I also understand that like it, as far as we understand, the epilogue was made after the end. Mm-hmm. So it's like if it wasn't there, then it would be all like, okay, there's nothing has a conclusion. So I'm like, hey, if you're gonna give it for one, give it for everybody.
It's just they are side characters, so I kind of forgive it for not like. And now here's Kato's or Kato and I have broken up, and here's Kato's new spouse or something along those lines. Like they're side characters, and also that would have been just such a weird shakeup to be like at the end.
I mean, I will say,
keep expecting them to break up. To be fair,
yeah. I mean, I will say, I would much rather have Kato in. So this translation calls her Lucy.
Yeah.
I don't remember her name, to be honest.
Oh, gotcha. So Lucy is the girl that he met in college.
Yeah, the first
present
year.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or she was in her first year.
Right.
And she won the contest. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And anyway, like I felt like that was a much better relationship than him and I.
Yeah.
Because I mean, to be fair, like I don't know how Lucy feels about Kato. I mean, she flirts with him. Like to me, that's like much better than. Maybe not much better, but like.
I mean, you didn't see their relationship in the beginning. It's that thing again of like you're just seeing like these two people interact at probably a very surface level.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also actually a little bit agree with Talon, just in that like, there's some unhealthy things that like, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's made off as like a joke.
Right, yeah, well, like, you hit him, and also he, like, badgered you, basically, into dating him, and you said that you didn't even really like him when you first went out, like, at least
He just
they...
begged you and begged you.
Yeah, at least they have, like, some chemistry, Lucy and him.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, it's like, man, I love you, she, like, says.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think I really do love him. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you guys still gonna hit him though?
Yeah.
Probably are. I mean, I think it's supposed to be a little bit more like just like smacking, not like
Yeah.
straight up like.
Yeah, it's slapstick.
I don't. Okay, so I thought she said something about hitting him with a bottle, like at one point.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that's
was
true.
it a glass bottle? Was it a plastic bottle?
Oh man, Succession theme.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, we're going there.
Okay, you guys don't even know the TV show I was about to reference, do you?
I mean, we don't know what your
I'm
reference.
thinking of the Succession TV show.
Oh,
I've
scene
definitely
where the
heard
one
of it.
character-
I've heard of it.
The
Yeah.
character pummels the other character with a bunch of water bottles.
Oh. I have not seen it, but I do know of it.
I have mentioned it before.
Mm.
Anyway, be
Okay.
nice to your friends
Yes.
and your partners.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe just don't hit them.
Yeah.
You know, there are healthier.
Maybe just scream at them like crazy.
No, not that. We go healthier still.
Yeah.
Yes.
You went from ice cream to chips. Better, not quite.
That analogy made no sense.
Anyway,
I have still more things I didn't like.
yeah, I was gonna say it's a little bit hard for me to talk about the things I didn't like because they're so intertwined with things I technically did like.
Okay.
Oh, go for
Gotcha.
it, Talon.
Yeah. So I mentioned this before, but I didn't really like the advice that Taneda's father
dad.
gave her. Was like, yeah, maybe you're just meant to like make sure he is remembered
Well, yeah. I mean,
or
I don't
existed.
think he,
That's
I don't think he means to like devote her life to just like being his surrogate,
yeah.
which is why it's so good that she's like, yeah, I did the one concert technically in honor of him, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not just gonna go for music for the rest of my life because it's just not my dream.
Yeah, it's definitely to me like, you know, because I mean the whole reason that he's like visiting, you know, or it's supposed to be that he's visiting is to pick up his stuff, and then he's like, oh, I can't take any of this, like,
and then they have a little like phrase like, you know, how they insert like sentences in the picture.
Yeah.
That's like not its own thought bubble.
it's almost like how we might use like a parenthesis, like it's like it's just like an extra bit.
Yeah, where it says if you don't want it, just throw it away.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like, but basically where I was going with that is like, yeah, it's like Shwenta was saying that it's not that like she needs to devote her life to, you know, telling people who Tanada was and like what he was about, or like even like changing her personality, but just like it's kind of like, okay, who knew him best, basically his parents and her, and his parents are just in like a little town and they're not going anywhere else, like, you know. And so it's kind of like how, like, you know, just that question of like he died so young, and oftentimes what people are concerned with when it comes to dying is, did I leave a mark on the world? And it's like, okay, you have to like kind of leave his mark for him.
Gotcha.
Man, I mean, I think you almost said what I was gonna say, but you kind of missed it for a moment there. Instead of you have to leave the mark for him, goes, you know, you're so sad over him dying because he doesn't have a legacy. You're that legacy. He touched you in some way.
Yeah,
Like, in your
yeah.
soul. And also like I understand where you're coming from, Talon, but again, his whole sentence is, if you still feel like you're to blame, please don't forget him. So in the context of thinking about what the character's trying to say, I think that he's saying, you know, I know you feel like you have no purpose, and in fact you feel like the opposite. You feel like you did something horrible. Your purpose was bad to ruin his life. It's not that way, you know.
Gotcha.
Just kind of trying to turn it around for her, because he can tell, you know, it hurts for her. I really, well, now I was about to say things I like because I forgot I bookmarked things I like.
Go for it. It's fine.
I don't know. Just again, that whole thing of the father was like, yeah, I was telling him not to do music. But then I finally gave and I told him, if you're going to do it, you better not give up on it. That thing again, you know, just go for it, man.
Now, I agree with his assessment of himself. It was like, I was just an idiot. I shouldn't have said that.
You know, that part actually kind of like, I was like, you know, they got me right up to like the emotionally resonant like part. And then like I kind of lost it a little bit because I felt like I misunderstood something in him, like, you know, being all like, I didn't think that he would take me so literally, you know, and I'm like, wait, what part exactly did he take literally that like, and why was that like bad, I mean, guess?
I assume he meant the, like, don't quit. Like, because he said, don't give up on it. And so it was like, okay, put everything he has into it, even if it kills him, kind of thing.
I guess so. Yeah, that's kind of where I went, but I felt like it was a little bit muddled in delivery, where it was like...
that's fair. But yeah, because to me, I'm like, it's hard because on one hand, I know that in certain instances, like, things may not seem very hopeful, but if you keep at it, like, you may come to a point where like things actually start clicking. However, like, to me, I feel like the advice, don't give up on it, is when we see how Taneda is doing, you know, it's just kind of like, but he's not like,
up on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did. But like but also it's like, but he's not that good. Like, no offense, but I'm just like, if your skill can only get to this level and it's not good enough to...
First time he actually tried, though, he did get a bite from a record label company.
Yeah.
That was just the first time he actually gave it his all, which to me is a sign that he is good. He's just, as he says a lot of times, it's very good, the parts about the artist part, where it's like, I could try my best, but also people, it might not be enough. Like, even if I give it my all, it just might not be worth it. Like, you know, and that would be almost worse than not trying.
Yeah.
So I think that's why he chooses most of the time to not try that hard. Like, oh, it's just fun to like play with my band. I don't care about anything bigger, but I do. It's this kind of thing.
And I get that. I like, again, I really like how relatable like a lot of these characters are. So like, just hearing that is like, you know, I could try, but it might not be worth, like, I
that is one of the strongest, like, I love that kind of thing that comes up, and usually comes up with artists, where it's like, I just said it, but I'm gonna say it again, where it's like, you could give it your all and you could never amount to anything, and that is so scary.
Yeah.
And that's what holds most people back. Maybe there isn't some beautiful untrapped talent within me. Maybe I'm just a regular person, and most people have to deal with that every day.
Yeah.
Most people aren't the main characters of a manga who are going to just break out and turn out to be the best that ever was.
NPC syndrome.
Yeah. But I think a little bit of the story is about that, where it's like, you don't have to be the most unique person ever. And that's kind of why I think some of the characters do come off as a little bit generic. Because like he said, you know, it's about regular people.
What did Rip say? My name is Yamada, the most common Japanese name.
God, I missed that part.
No, that's a pretty good poll, actually. Yeah, I didn't really think about that, you know, until like the wider context of the story. But yeah, it's like, you know, and Yeah, actually, that's even more interesting when you think about like the context of like names in general and like him and his name being Rip and that being embarrassing for him. But it's like, it's his like personal name, you know, for like his friends only, basically. That he doesn't even like, but it's like.
He doesn't like it, but it's between that or being the most generic name ever.
Yeah.
Right.
That's fun, yeah.
Yeah. Man, I feel like my mind could really like dig into that one detail even, but
It's definitely a story I could see myself rereading to like I think a lot of the flaws come from the fact, like you were saying, Cody, that it was probably written in one go, and also it's a very biased viewpoint of someone who is that age.
yeah. Yeah. And
So.
This sounds like a whole different podcast episode, but I just want to know, like, what do you mean?
It is a little biased to be 24 and writing about 24-year-olds and being like, but it's all gonna work out, right? Like, we're gonna find some happiness can be found by just being with your friends. Like, maybe, but also you're 24, kid.
Okay.
I don't know. It's not like I'm.
I guess
I'm older. So what am I saying?
I guess like to me, when I think of biased, I think of like in a kind of way that you disagree with. And so I guess, but biased, I agree in the sense that, you know, if this is a 24-year-old writing this, like, yeah, this is 24.
yeah. No, yeah, that's.
Should I be trusting this profound
Yeah.
musings?
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, it's just interesting. I wonder, like, I'm kind of curious now, like, if that thematic, like, through line is expressed, like, throughout, like, his other work. You know, we kind of talked about the other one that we read and, like, how the, I don't know, like, society is basically, like, there's a through line of that. I'm like, I wonder if he, like, as he grows up, if he changes his mind or not.
Interesting.
Just imagine Inio being like, yeah, you know, I wrote all that was just utter horse crap. I totally reject this book.
That's the thing. I only read that after the book, so I didn't
Makes
realize
sense.
he was that age when he wrote it. Because it is very much like his other works.
Yeah.
Once he said I was 24 when I wrote this, I went, of course you were. Because like there's definitely something a little bit different in his other works. His other works, like Did the Demons and Destruction, is technically younger characters. They're just barely 18 and then like growing up from there a little bit. And they don't go to college most part.
Yeah.
And they're very aimless in some ways. But it does still, I can't put my finger on it. It does feel like an older person writing about it though. And Poon Poon, despite the fact that I've read probably only half the series, depressing. It's so depressing. It's so realistic yet morbid. God. That thing is bizarre. There's a reason why it's his most famous work. Technically. There's some sort of, I don't know, does it come with being older, the despair that is expressed in Poon Poon? There's this thing where it's almost like these characters are set up to fail from their very childhoods. Like they have such dark childhoods, the majority of them. And I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a good point because, like, you know, in this story, you know, we don't really get a look at their childhoods except for when Tanada's dad visits and he's like, yeah, the house was really cold. And I guess also Miko's mom, you know, just like their relationship, I guess. You know, those are the only two glimpses, but still it's like they're not bad. Actually, okay, Tanada's a little bit bad. Like, you know, they talk about like fighting like physically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not good. But yeah, definitely like fraught, I would say. A little bit to a lot of bit fraught.
Now, I did take that jovially.
Yeah. No, I mean it was a lot like the relationship and
Yeah.
like I hit him
Yeah.
like, you know.
Yeah.
It's like
It didn't even register to me that, oh, that's actually really messed up.
but yeah, I mean, okay, continuing on that, sorry, that got distracting, but yeah, so like I think that there is kind of this like this through line of like, yeah, your childhood affects you and like maybe he only reflects on that more as he gets older. The author, I mean, at this point. But yeah.
Thinking of like a college graduate to be like, man, the people I met in college really affected me. Because like the majority of the flashbacks are about the group meeting or Taneda and Meiko meeting and in college and the effects of that. So there's very little on the like childhood. You can still see it definitely feels like the beginning of his style. Right?
Yeah.
There's some the parents are introduced. You can kind of see how they are related and how they affect their children. But it's such a youngster thing to be like, but my friends.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah. Man, I wish that I had that afterword now, just so that I had more time to like think about this, because it is really interesting. I don't know, just to think about like.
Okay, I feel like in general the story is something that needs to be thought about for a while.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
could talk about the art.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm good to move on to the art. Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely his style.
Yeah, definitely his style. I recognized it eventually, you know, like, I mean, it's been a while since we last read him. And so it was all like, this seems familiar. And I'm like, is this just like the style that Shawenta likes? And then I was like, no, I've definitely seen this. That being said, I noticed that sometimes, like, so I'm just going to shorten the title because A, it's too long, and B,
Distraction.
yeah, destruction. Basically, in that one, like, we really complimented, like, the really, like, crisp backgrounds and stuff like that. And, like, you know, the just, like, detail-oriented artwork. In this one, a lot of panels were a lot more, like, blurry, I guess. But I do think that it was purposeful. You know, I don't think that it was, like, you know, a scan problem or, you know, that he just wasn't as talented yet. I think that he was going for that. I just didn't like it, though, as much personally.
I do think he was still developing his style. His backgrounds don't feel quite... They feel almost like they're encroaching on the characters at times.
Yeah, and I do agree. Yeah, I guess I maybe overstated that a little bit. I do think that he was working on his style still, but I don't think that that was like the only reason, you know.
It's very developed. Like I said, I didn't realize that he drew this so young.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very distinctly his. But I do really like how he developed later on. I do think like the way his characters started to look different and how he leaned into a lot of his slapstick stuff, or even just like bizarre comedy of characters' faces gets a lot better in the other stories versus this one is very typical, except for the small instances of jokes.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, though, at the same time that he is pretty good at expressions and like having a variety of them, and even having like the same kind of emotions expressed, but the expressions being different for different people, I guess. And yeah, and not really like falling into like same faciness, same body type, like nobody was all like, wait, is that person that person,
Yeah.
So yeah, that really worked for me, and he did well with that.
He's got the really strong, when there's supposed to be like very intense moments, he's able to do different angles and like action, like her smashing that TV.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
it's in some ways such a generic dramatic thing of like, and smashing the TV. But, you feel like it very much, I don't know, it's just in the moment, it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, there's good close-ups. The pacing, like we said, the pacing's a little funny, 'cause sometimes it's so compact in some ways, and yet at the same time there's almost nothing happening sometimes, because there's so much talking to themselves.
Yeah. I would say that also like helps it go down pretty fast. I was like, oh boy, 400 pages, and I'm just now starting. Shweta said to start this at the beginning of the week. I am just now starting.
I need more than 1 week, actually. I
Yeah.
said before we did last show.
Yeah. And and I was like, gosh, I'm gonna have to like wake up on Saturday morning and read the other half. But no, I mean, I took 2 hours to read it, pretty much.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it went down fast. I was checking the progress bar kind of, and I was like, wow, I'm getting through this.
Yeah.
I'll probably say, like, once we got to his death, then we was all just easy riding from there for me.
That's fair. I was definitely like, wait a minute, we're in like 19. We were just 17 like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was that fast for me, but it was like, man, these 20 pages went by really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's not much I can say about the art style. Sometimes his faces are very gangly, but that is such his art style, I cannot fault it at all. If he wasn't so good at what he does, I actually think I wouldn't like the art. I'm like, it's a little weird.
Yeah. I feel like it is a little bit like acquired taste, a little bit, because like before I realized there's something that we'd read before, and when I was still like unsure about what the story was even gonna be, that was also something that was off-putting in the beginning. I was like, I don't like this art, like it's kind of ugly. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. Fine.
Did you notice a change in the art from the main story and the epilogue?
Yeah, a little bit, yes. The epilogue did have slightly different art, and it was worse to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that. In the sense, I feel like it's more like we're so used to this one way, and then this new thing is like,
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Like maybe like I'd have to look at it closer to know, is it like just fundamentally worse, or is it just different?
Yeah. No, and the change in the art was actually drastic enough for me to where I was like, who are these characters?
Okay. It wasn't that drastic, but I mean, it definitely, like, first page, I was like, this is different. But at the same time, like, yeah, it's a weird, like, I feel like it had to do with, like, how heavy the inks were. But it's really, that's getting a little bit in the minutia, especially with Shweta having not read that part.
I guess, like, how I remember it, I read it as more like, I noticed that it looks kind of more concept art-y If
In-
where like
Sounds like it was sketchier.
yeah, we'll go with that.
sketchier. Yeah, I could see that, and maybe that's like that kind of leans into my theory of like the fans demand an answer.
that's
it's
fair.
like fine, I'll just draw
Okay,
this
Yeah.
up.
my off day.
Yeah.
I'll just whip up something.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but back to the main story, like I have no comments on the art. I thought it was fine. Although what I did notice, not that it's bad, but this is something I noticed, was like the characters' faces look very unique to me. Like not necessarily from each other. I mean, even though like I didn't have any confusion on who was who.
Yeah,
They
that is also true, but something else.
Yes. And that is like the faces are just unique from other manga or comics that I've read in the past. They just seem very like new, And specifically what I noticed was like the head on the top of it would be round, and then like below the nose would just like kind of curve in a little bit more than normal. Like it would be slanted rather than straight down.
These odd little like flat chins, almost like, or I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting, almost like realistic take on a cartoon style.
Yeah.
Hard to describe.
Interesting. This is a very,
Bizarre.
very interesting observation. Yeah. Also, actually, speaking of like cartoon styles, it's funny. Like I remember thinking that the other office lady in the very beginning, she like has like such a more like cutesy like anime girl look,
He loves to do that, especially with characters who are kind of full of themselves. She's like, yeah, I'm dating this head of this company. His mansion is so big or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did she actually say that, or was that?
No,
She literally says like,
it was something very much like that. But
Okay.
yeah. She's like, it's just so hard. He's so lonely and all his like, because he has so many rooms. It's like something like that.
Yeah. No, I really liked the mock voice that you gave to her though, because
No, it totally. She says, my boyfriend asked me to move in with him since his place is too big for one person. He's the president of the T Corporation. He's got a Bulgari watch and everything. And I love Meiko being like, is he an idiot? She's like, his dream is to get a bronze statue of himself put in front of Studio Alta. Like, his dream is a statue of himself. Great.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel
He makes,
Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
he has such good emphasis for certain parts.
Yeah, and he like basically gives more realistic features to the characters that are more real with themselves and more like introspective, basically.
Okay.
It's true, actually. I noticed that even in Demons and Destruction, all the like people who are on TV have such weird little faces. Man, the lady with the little pig nose.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look back at that book again because I feel like I did not process it correctly. Like, if that makes sense. Like, I'm like, because I enjoyed this one, and I don't think I really enjoyed Demon's Destruction.
I think, well, the whole thing was I was trying to get you guys to that emotional beat of Taneda dying. That's why I was like, just read as much as you can, please. Even though I hadn't even read the book at that point, or the story in general. I don't think we ever hit the emotional beat that happens in Demons and Destruction. And so I think it is again, you guys were in the intro part. Only volume 1.
Oh, because we didn't finish all of it? Is that
Yeah.
No, you guys, well, we read volume 1. That was
Yeah.
it.
Oh.
Yeah,
oh,
we read
okay.
And
we
that's
read volume 1.
technically still the introduction. I mean,
Yeah.
imagine if you had only read volume 1 of Solanin.
Right.
Yeah. That'd be that we'd be having a much different
Yeah.
conversation.
Wish something happened.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Someone die already.
I know. Well, we would actually be asking. I think. Do we think that Taneda died?
Yeah, yeah. Did he die? Like, what does that mean? Like, do we wish that there was like more to be said?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's pretty much what I was alluding to with wanting to go back to Demon Destruction, because I'm
It
like,
is my favorite work of his for sure.
okay,
When the character dies, the character dies. It's definitely I don't know. That's good.
yeah,
I like his work for the most part, and I'm happy I read this one, even though I expected myself to like it more than I did. I don't know, maybe I'm just not a big fan of like bands and music.
Mm.
I don't like Scott Pilgrim.
So,
This is kind of a friend group music thing again.
so if they replaced bands and music with cooking, would you be
drawing?
into it? Or drawing?
Drawing it or cooking?
That would do it for
That
you?
would have done it more for me.
Wow, okay.
Meiko, you need to understand that Taneda's soul is flowing through your hands as you cut this carrot. I don't think necessarily. I don't know. I want more of that Meiko from the beginning who hates everything. It did become a little bit more about Taneda, didn't it? Like,
Yeah,
in some ways.
I think that that's part of what shocked me most, that he died. Even though I was like, is he gonna die? You know, I was still like, because I was almost feeling like he became the main character for a second, and I was like, oh yeah, this started with Miko's narration. I forgot a little bit.
It's still technically about her because it's about her processing this. Like,
right? Yeah.
Taneda's not there, not like watching her die and being sad about it. It's about her reaction to that event.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I'd have to think about it more about whether that I like that less because of that.
Wait, like,
I don't know.
what? I'm sorry, I missed something there. What are you thinking about more? What you'd like?
I guess just does it work less for me because Taneda became such a big focus,
Oh,
and
okay.
in such a way it feels like he was the main character.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is kind of about her getting over him, but through his means, music.
Yeah.
Because like we said, music was never her thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just a way for her to process his death.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think, you know, and then this kind of cycles back to, like, you know, a point before of, like, you know, did it have to be like music? I feel like it's very hard for me to imagine the story you know, mutating in any way. You know, like, it feels like, even when we were talking about cuts earlier, I was like, yeah, maybe I'd cut something, but also at the same time, it's very like, you change that and then it changes this, you know. So
Yeah, it's harder for it to be about a group if it's not about a band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it just becomes a solitary thing then. Like,
a dancing trope.
Troop.
Yeah, dancing troupe. There you go.
Taneda just wanted to express himself with his jazz hands. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we're going back in circles again. I definitely will want to read more of Asano's work, at least. I do very much enjoy the fact that this is a self-contained piece, shorter, because, man, his stuff is long.
Yeah. I only skimmed his Wikipedia page, but it kind of seemed, I guess they had 3 notable works, and it's the 3 that we've been mentioning, the one that we read, the other one that we read, and the one that you've read half of. So
yeah, I will say he has another work I almost did for the show. It is so dark, though. I got to the first page, I went, oh, that's incredibly messed up. I don't feel like discussing this with anyone. So, just a little, you know, in case anybody's planning on going into some of his works. Yeah.
look out.
You want
Messed
to
up.
tell them, us, me, what the title of that is?
It's about little kids and this horror thing about a well in his town.
Little kids, well, not good. Okay.
Yeah. Wait, you were asking for
the title.
The title of the story.
I don't remember
okay.
at the moment. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
All right.
I mean, you're gonna see it on the first page, man.
Yeah.
I think it's literally called something along the lines of like the well or something. I didn't even give away what it's like about. Yeah. Watch out, guys.
Yeah. Honestly, like with the descriptions that you're giving of his work, I would not be into it all.
I'd say the Demons and Destruction is still very fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
It's not too dark in the same way his other stuff is.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember my my commentary on that.
I mean, I think the most part we said was it was like, man, it's just slice of life, cool, but I don't particularly connect with these characters, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, it was just too slow of a burn for just volume 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here it is. The one. So yes, well, I'll tell you what it's about. So the manga that I was talking about was Nichigara Holograph.
Okay.
Which, of course, I would not have remembered. Literally, it's about a girl being thrown down a well by her classmates and their lives afterwards.
Getting Joseph up in here.
I don't think she survives the well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I definitely read his other works. At some point, I may finish Poon Poon. But I know that it's only going to get darker from there because I haven't even started like the main draw everybody has to the story. It's all been backstory.
Yeah.
I've read like half of it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 1 toxic couple of all time. Pretty much.
The anti-OTP.
Pretty much.
What?
OTP, one true pairing.
Oh. I'm sure I've heard that phrase before. I just didn't come to mind.
Oh yeah, I mean, does this change how you feel about his work, I guess, instead of like, would you read more?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I mean, yeah, I would probably, like I said, I wanted to revisit Demons and Destruction. Yeah, and I think I might... See, this is the part of the show where I'm like, my reading list is too long, but I would someday consider even picking up Poon Poon. I will say, this is what I was going to say like way, way earlier. I was really like emotionally upset at you for picking this book at the midway point. I was like so mad that Tanada died. I was like, no.
Yeah, see, and when I saw that, I was like, I have the opposite reaction. Okay.
Like, yeah, things are happening. It's like about damn time.
Yeah,
I mean, already.
I got over it, but I was like, dang it, Shawenta, like this is worse than Talon picking a Marvel Comics event that's hard to read.
So what about you, Talon?
Nah, not really. I mean,
but you liked what Solanin was, or what?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think. I don't know. To me, like manga is not like my typical, what I typically read. So it's like.
This is also slice of life once again, which is the only thing he seems to write actually.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't care about most slice of life manga either. So.
Which is weird for me because like anime, I'm like, oh, slice of life anime. Like, okay, cool. I'm down for that.
Yeah.
Manga is not.
Well,
fair,
that's not
anime. You just have to sit there and
just
happens in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I feel like I like more comedy slice of life.
You
know, and like, and there's also I've also enjoyed drama slice of lives too, but they tend to be like this, a slower burn. Where you're all like, okay, these are just people. Like, like they're not even doing anything funny.
They're not going to discover that they have secret superpowers and are X-Men.
But then, it becomes good. But, yeah.
There'd be a payoff. There's got to be. If you're setting all this up, there better be a payoff, pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were going to compare this to the baseball manga.
I mean, I brought that up earlier. Cross game.
I forgot about that.
I mean, spoilers for cross game. Pretty major death.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot because I wasn't thinking about that when I was reading this, but when Shawenta brought it up, I was like, oh yeah. Yeah. See, with cross game, I was more entertaining in the beginning because, like, I could get behind, like, the kids, like, just having fun and being interested in their goal of, like, practicing baseball and stuff. This was a little bit more
There was a good
nebulous
bait switch with cross game.
Yeah.
It's like, man, this is a fun thing. They just want to get good at baseball, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
she died.
Yeah.
And she dies in such a tragically, like, heroic way. Like, so sad.
Anyway, okay.
Anyway, I love traumatizing people, is what we learned.
Yeah. You love
I'm so glad you had that reaction, Cody.
Yeah, love traumatizing people and love characters who hate everything.
That fits. It goes together.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is new Shawenta lore.
We knew. I knew. You guys are all just catching up.
I hope you know your own lore.
I love the fact that you compare it to Lawrence. This is...
Okay.
All right, I think that's all we have for this show.
Yeah.
So this has been the comic panel. I'm Cody.
I'm Taylon.
And I'm Shawenta.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening. And if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe as it helps us out in the YouTube algorithms and helping us being seen by more and more people. And be sure to hit the bell notification so that you won't miss a single video. And if you're listening to us on podcast format, be sure to rate and review our podcast, as that also helps us out in the algorithms and being seen by more and more people. Thank you, and have a blessed day.